You know that feeling. It is the 4th of the month. The standing orders have just left your account like a leak you cannot plug. You open your banking app, sitting in the cab of your lorry, and you stare at the number that is left. Something cold settles in your chest. It isn't panic. It is just arithmetic. It is the silent calculation of how many miles you have to haul, how many nights you have to sleep in a lay-by, just to make it to the next payday without the wheels falling off. This is not a story about getting rich. I am a lorry driver, not a hedge fund manager. But this is a story about one specific number. It is the exact moment your life in Britain stops being a question of survival and starts being a question of freedom. That number is £20,000. And here is the harsh truth nobody wants to say out loud while we are chatting in the transport office. Most people in the United Kingdom will never see that amount of money in one place. According to the official stats, 1 in 6 adults in this country have absolutely no savings at all. None. 39% have a grand or less. A quarter of the people you see at the services have less than 200 quid in their account. That is less than a typical bloke spends on a weekly shop and a tank of petrol. We are told Britain is a wealthy country, but for most drivers on the tarmac, the wallet stays thin. The question isn't whether you failed. The question is what happens on the day you finally cross that line and put 20 grand behind a glass wall. Before we talk about the other side, we have to name the thing that lives on this side. Scarcity. It is a psychological tax that gets paid by anyone whose balance is always one unexpected bill away from zero. It is 2 a.m. and you are awake in your sleeper cab. You are doing mental math in the dark. Council tax comes out on the 5th. The electricity is on a variable tariff and it just jumped again. The car insurance for the missus is due next Tuesday. You move money from one pot to another on your phone like a chess player with only pawns left. This is survival mode. In this mode, every single pound has a job before it even hits your account. There is no slack, no maybe. This is what the cost of living crisis actually feels like from the inside of an Arctic. It isn't a headline, it is a heartbeat, a fast, heavy one, every single month. And then one ordinary Thursday, something impossible happens. You refresh your banking app, you see the balance, and for the first time in your adult life, the number starts with a 2 and has 4 zeros behind it. It doesn't feel like wealth. It doesn't feel like you've won the pools. It feels like silence. The chest pressure you have been carrying since you were 22 years old quietly lifts. You don't even notice it's gone at first because it's been your internal weather for decades. £20,000 is not a luxury. It is a firewall. It is a wall of bricks between you and disaster. Consider what disaster looks like for a driver. The boiler dies in the middle of February. The gearbox on your personal car gives up on the M6. The fridge in the kitchen hums, then clicks, then goes silent. For the bloke with 500 quid in the bank, any one of these is a crisis. It is a credit card maxed out. It is a payday loan with an interest rate that would make a Victorian moneylender blush. It is a mountain of stress that takes months to climb. For the person with 20 grand in the bank, the same event is just a Tuesday. You pay the plumber. You book the garage. You order the new fridge. The money leaves the account. And yes, it stings a bit, but it does not break you. That is the pivot, not status, not showing off. It is the quiet, unfamiliar sensation of a problem being solved by money instead of a problem becoming a catastrophe that ruins your month. There is a study that measured the brain power of people in financial stress. They found that the constant background hum of "how will I pay for this" reduced their effective intelligence by a massive amount. It's like driving a lorry with a restricted engine. When you cross that 20,000-pound line, you reclaim your brain. The 2 a.m. calculator in your head switches off. You walk into work, and perhaps for the first time, you can actually think about the job instead of the debt. You start to notice things. You notice that a senior manager position is opening up. You see a better route. You raise your hand in the meeting because you are no longer terrified of losing the job you already have. You ask for a pay rise because 20 grand in the bank gives you permission to say, "I deserve more," without your voice shaking. Scarcity narrows the mind, but a firewall of 20 grand widens it. Now, and only now, something else begins to happen. The money itself starts to move. If you put 2 grand in a decent ISA, you might get enough interest for a weekly food shop after a year. You cannot really feel it. But place 20,000, the full annual ISA allowance, at the same rate. Suddenly, you are producing nearly a grand a year entirely tax-free. That is a month of groceries. That is a weekend away in the Lake District. That is your electricity bill for half a year paid by the money itself. Suddenly, the tree has fruit you can actually see. And once you can see fruit, you start planting more trees. You discover that money at this size begins to work for you in the background, like a quiet second driver who never needs a break. The first 20 grand is the engine block. It is the crankshaft. It is the part that makes every pound you save after that multiply instead of evaporate. 5 grand cannot do this work. It isn't heavy enough. 20,000 is the first number large enough that compound interest finally has something real to grab onto. And then comes the moment you were never warned about. The boss calls you in for a meeting you didn't ask for. The manager says something that last year you would have just swallowed. The commute that has been draining your soul for years crosses a line. Only this time, something is different. You remember your firewall. You do not quit in a blaze of glory. You do not throw your taco card at him. You simply know, for the first time, that you could walk out if you wanted to. And that knowledge changes every single word you say next. 20 grand buys you roughly a year of runway in this country, a year of no, a year of choosing, a year of holding out for work that does not hollow you out. The psychology of the man who can walk away is entirely different from the man who is trapped. Employers feel it. The people around you feel it. It is the quiet authority of someone with options. You stop being the person bad situations happen to. You become the person who negotiates from a position of strength. Now think about the math. The rule of 72. Divide 72 by your interest rate, and that's how many years it takes for your money to double. At a decent return, your 20 grand becomes 40, then 80, then 160. With steady contributions and the discipline of the person you have now become, £1,000,000 by retirement isn't a fantasy for a lorry driver. It is just mathematics. But without that first 20 grand, none of the engine runs. The first 20,000 is proof. It is proof that for a sustained period of your life, You directed more money inward than outward. It is proof that when the takeaway was tempting and the flashy new motor was on finance, you chose your freedom instead. The people who reach 20 grand very rarely stop there, not because they are greedy, but because the habits that got them there do not switch off. They have become, without noticing, the kind of person who owns their life. So the next time you stare at your banking app on the 4th of the month and feel that pressure in your chest, remember, you are not failing. You are just on one side of the firewall. Keep pushing. If this gave you a bit of a roadmap for the road ahead, drop a like on the video, mate. It helps the message reach the blokes who are struggling in survival mode. Subscribe for more honest tales from the Tarmac and the real talk about the money and the mind. And let me know in the comments, what is the one firewall goal you are working toward right now? Stay disciplined. Keep your eye on the numbers and keep the shiny side up. Over and out.